Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Star Wars, American politics, and BLM. Alright, so let's get into this, and specifically we're going to talk about this because recently John Boyega came out and talked about what he thought was happening with his character Finn in the Star Wars movies, and that he wasn't happy with what Disney had done overall with his character and the direction, the story arc for his character. Really, really fascinating, right? So I'm just going to kind of lay this down again. I have this strong belief that American celebrity is the most valuable currency in the entire world. And if you don't think I'm right, boy, oh boy, there's so many examples of it. You could do things with American celebrity that you can't do with cash, right? Like, I'll just say a good example of this is, I think it was Colbert had on Keanu Reeves the other day, and Colbert was like, "Hey, Keanu Reeves, I'm interviewing you for your Bill and Ted 3 movie. By the way, I saw that. It was a great movie, 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely suggest seeing Bill and Ted 3. And Keanu Reeves was, I think he was talking with Stephen Colbert, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? Where are you right now?" Because they're just doing a Zoom call, right? So he likes to tell people, this is where this other person physically is. And Keanu Reeves goes, "I'm in Germany," right? And Stephen Colbert goes, "What are you doing in Germany? Like, how'd you get over there, right? And why are you over there?" And the reason Stephen Colbert was asking this is, like, if you're an American, I'll tell you right now, I got a passport, right? I ain't going nowhere, right? Because I have absolutely zero confidence I could get back in this country. If you in America, you best stay in America, because this is not the time to travel, right? With the COVID stuff, you don't know if you're going to be able to get back in your country, right? Oh, but Keanu Reeves, he's like, "Oh, no, I'm not a normal human being. I don't need to worry about your mortal constraints. I go where I want," right? Like, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm over here in Germany." And he kind of played around, and, like, he knew that he couldn't be very specific about why he was in Germany. And Colbert was like, "Oh, you must have went months ago." And he goes, "No, I went 6 weeks ago," right? And I'm like, everybody, and Colbert's like, "What?" And I'm like, "What?" And then I remembered, Keanu Reeves, I know he's Canadian, but he's an American celebrity, right? He don't tell people he's Canadian, right? Like, why would he? Like, if people think you're American, you certainly don't want to correct them if you're a movie star that you're Canadian. That ain't gonna win any points, It's like, so it's a big deal. Like, it's a thing, right? And the thing is, like, he could just come and go as he wants because he has American celebrity, right? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just announced that him and his whole family had COVID, and they're all fine now. They're past it, right? Like, so I had seen that he announced it, and then I saw Grace Randolph say they're announcing it because they're out of it, right? So they kept their privacy while they were going through it, and then as soon as they were done with it, then they're like, "Oh, yeah, we had it, and now it's gone," right? Like, and I was kind of like, wait, I know there are students all over the country in schools, and if they get corona, they get contact traced right away. They snatch their phone so fast the phone spins out of their hand, right? And their privacy is gone in a second. Dwayne Johnson's an American celebrity, right? He gets, there's a different set of rules for him, right? And so the thing is, the idea that American entertainment, American celebrity is disconnected from American politics has become utterly ludicrous, right? Hollywood is highly, highly invested in American politics, both literally and figuratively, right? But here, this John Boyega thing goes way beyond what we just talked about, because John Boyega is not American, right? He is European, right? And he's, I saw him first in the movie, I think it was called Take the Block. He did a fantastic job in that. And by the way, I really think he did a fantastic job with Finn, and I enjoyed him as Finn, and I saw his role in the Star Wars film as a major progression of the BLM movement, right? Basically the sentiment and the momentum of BLM, the fact that, Black Lives Matter. I saw Finn's inclusion in the Star Wars film as the Star Wars, the entire Star Wars milieu, the series of films progressing in racial harmony. It looked like that to me, right? And so, and by the way, I have a huge, I have a review of the first Star Wars movie, Force Awakens, that is longer than the Star Wars movie. It's like 16 parts, right? And I'll go ahead and put the link below. And it's really, it's pretty incredible, right? I love these films, and the reality is, I really felt strongly that this was a progression of racial harmony. But John Boyega just did an interview, and it was made international news this week, and he was like, Disney didn't know what to do with my character. They made it out like I was going to be really important in the films, and then by the end of the films, they really didn't know what to do with me. They did know what to do with Rey. They did know what to do with Kylo Ren. So Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver, those actors got these great story arcs, and Finn, what are you going to do with him, right? And he was frustrated, and he was venting very publicly his frustration. Now, here's the problem, right? One, if you know, it seems like overall Star Wars has been really, this is me on the outside looking in, right? He's there, right? But from the outside looking in, it looks like Star Wars was a huge opportunity for him. He got in there, and he did 3 multi-billion-dollar, every single movie he was in. Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker made over $1 billion, and I think one of them made $2 billion, right? So he is now in films that did $4 billion in box office, and that has catapulted him past thousands of other actors in celebrity, in power, in the ability to command new roles, and all these things, right? But that's not where he's feeling. That's not what he's feeling right now. He's feeling frustrated, and spoke out publicly against his employer and what might have been his possible future employer, and saying, you didn't know what to do with my character, right? Now, here's the issue. It seems to me, externally looking out, like that Star Wars didn't have great representation in the prequels or in the original trilogy. And so J.J. Abrams comes along and makes one of the key characters, you know, like basically there's always like a trilogy of characters. There was Han, Luke, and Leia, right? And here you had Poe, Finn, and Rey, right? And Poe was black, right? So here you have one of the, you know, and J.J. Abrams was saying, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to have 3 white people representing the face of Star Wars. We're going to have 2 white people and 1 black person. And I was like, that seems like progress, you know. But I'm now corrected by John Boyega that this wasn't progress, and he was frustrated. I think he wanted his character to be a Jedi, right? Like that, you know, he could dance around it and say a bunch of other stuff, but that, you know, what else you going to be in Star Wars, right? You know, like, and frankly, look at the 2 characters that got major story arcs. It's a Jedi and a Sith, right? So I think he was frustrated that his character didn't have Force powers. I get that, right? But one of the things that I think is a little bit disappointing is now that John Boyega has come along and said, no, this wasn't cool. This was not cool, right? There should have been a better story arc for my character. He's saying, I think it makes it hard for us as Star Wars fans to say that it was progressive. And now we need to look at the person who was there on the ground, like doing the role, and I feel like his words are saying it's regressive, right? So this is highly disappointing for me as a Star Wars fan. I really thought that this had been a good progression, right? But John Boyega is closer to it, right? And if he's saying that he's not happy with what happened with his character, nobody can ignore that, right? Now, what does this do for American politics, right? Well, the reality is, I think it makes it even harder for creators to go forward, right? Because I really think that J.J. Abrams thought he was being progressive, right? And I, as a fan, thought it was progressive too, right? But if his main person, John Boyega, who had to play the role of Finn, really is voicing now that it was regressive, then that tells us, you know, like, you really better think twice before you proceed, right, with these films, because the reality is it's going to be a lot harder than I think anybody thought to actually put progress on the screen, right? And also that you can spend time doing what you think is progressive and end up finding yourself, from the people that you did multi-billion-dollar projects with, being called regressive, right? And really being kind of framed as being regressive, which, I'm really challenged with this, right? Because I was a real fan of Finn, and I was a fan of, and I thought that John Boyega did a fantastic job as Finn. I think he was extremely well cast, right? It is very disappointing, right? The other thing is, I think one thing too is this makes it very hard for allies. And the reason why is I think a lot of people want to come along and help with BLM, but seeing this situation, it really, I think it's going to make people wonder if they should try. And the reason why is I think J.J. Abrams genuinely thought he was helping things, right? And now only like 2-3 years later, after the whole thing's done, does he found, no, this was really regressive, right? So, and I think overall, I think it's very clear. It seems clear for people who are right in the middle of the BLM thing to know what the right path is. But I think for allies who want to assist, it may not be clear at all how to assist. I genuinely thought that when I bought my tickets for Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, at least 3 tickets to each movie. I think I saw Force Awakens like 7 times in the theater. I think I saw Last Jedi 4, and I saw Rise of Skywalker twice in theaters. And when I buy merch, I just bought a Gundam style model of Poe's boosted X-wing, that I was doing something that was progressive and that was in support of BLM and a film series that was increasing its BLM presence, right? But now John Boyega, I do think his experience trumps mine, right? In that if he's saying no, this was not progressive, and then we got to listen to him first before me, right? But I think this is going to make it even harder for people who are not on the protest line saying, how do I help here? And thinking, oh, well, I could try this, and maybe for a little while it'll be called progressive, but then later it's going to get swung back on me, and I'm going to be looked at as regressive. It's confusing and disappointing. And I really just want to say overall that I'm disappointed. I really, really thought that, and my videos talked about this, the importance of Finn in the films, of Rose Tico, and minority, and really what I thought was really progressive minority representation, right? And then to learn later, no, from the literal minorities who are in the film, that no, this was not progressive. This did not make them happy. They were not happy with how this whole thing turned out and how their characters were treated. It is very, very disappointing. And I will say right now, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong here. But when you don't know how to help, when you want to be woke and you can't even figure out how to help, that frustrates people, right? And I think that's going to keep people from the polls in September, because I really do. And honestly, boy, oh boy, you want to talk about confusing on whether it's progressive or not. Is it progressive to vote for Joe Biden? I don't know. He's pretty strong. The Biden crime bill is a thing, right? And also, looking over an array of minority candidates and saying we want this, this septuagenarian white person as the candidate, is that progressive, right? So I think I'm sad. I'm very sad at this situation as a whole, and I think it's disappointing, and I'm frustrated, right? And so, because I really thought I was being an ally in that situation, and it turns out I wasn't, right? I was just really making a problem for John Boyega, which is really frustrating. So, and I think a lot of people are in this situation where they're like, I want to help, but I don't know how, right? And I'm worried that what I think is progressive and what I think is helpful is going to be framed as regressive later. And I don't think they're wrong. This is kind of shocking. Like, $4 billion in box office, and John Boyega is not happy, and I don't want to be dismissive, and I don't want to ignore what he's saying, but I will say I am confused, and frankly, I'm frustrated, because I really did think people who were supporting those films were supporting increased representation in science fiction American blockbusters, and that's not a small thing, because American entertainment is the biggest industry in the world right now, right? It's not the biggest industry. Actually, it very well may be the biggest industry in the world right now, especially when you start thinking about streaming and all that kind of thing. But it absolutely is the most important. There's no two ways, there's no two ways about it that it is the most important. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on the topic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.